The chopper's low hum sat in my chest like a second heartbeat. I kept my eyes on the tree line below us, the dark stretch of pine broken only by thin pockets of smoke drifting off the burn scar. Lieutenant Harrow slid into the seat beside me and handed over the mission slate. The report was short. Fire detected at 0200. Civilian presence confirmed earlier in the night, and the reminder printed in bold at the bottom. Pine Devil territory. Proceed with caution. I read it once, then looked at my team. They watched me through the dim cabin lights, waiting for the plan. "We touched down on the northern edge of the burn," I said into the headset. "Check for survivors first. Stay sharp. If the creature stayed close to the fire, we'll see signs fast." The pilot brought us lower as we tracked the edge of the burn. The floodlights washed over scorched timber and pockets of white ash that still pushed out thin threads of heat. The fire looked recent, fresh enough that no ground crew had swept it yet. Harrow leaned forward, studying the terrain below us. "No movement," he said through the headset. Hale checked in over the earpiece a second later, calm and steady. "Telemetry clean. Fog rising fast on your east side." The others stayed quiet, helmets tilted toward the open door. I kept my eyes on the tree line, watching the fog slide between the trunks in slow sheets. We touched down fast. The fog pushed in from all sides as I stepped off the skid and felt warm ash under my boots. Harrow signaled the team into position. Hale came through the earpiece from HQ, steady as ever. "Thermals are patchy. Fog's blocking half the scan. Move careful." Harrow raised his light toward the tree line. "Got tracks," he said. "Human. More than one." They were running. The prints cut toward the deeper woods and disappeared into the fog. We moved off the landing zone and into the burn. The ground shifted under each step, soft from the heat. Harrow followed the tracks with his light while the others covered both sides. Hale checked in again. "Movement ping, northwest. Could be an animal, could be one of the civilians." I stopped the line with a hand signal and listened. The forest stayed quiet, but the fog ahead of us kept changing shape, like something passed through it and slipped out of view. We closed in on the northwest side of the burn. The fog thickened fast, enough to cut our range in half. Harrow kept the beam steady on the prints until they hit a patch of blackened roots and scattered out. "They stopped here," he said. I crouched to check the ground myself. The ash was disturbed, like someone fell or was dragged. Hale came through again. "I'm losing most of your telemetry. Whatever's out there is blocking signal." The team didn't move. Everyone felt it. The sense that we weren't alone on the line. A sound broke the line. Quick, sharp, somewhere inside the fog ahead of us. Harrow swung his light toward it, but the beam hit nothing. The team shifted their rifles up, waiting for my call. I stepped forward and tried to get Hale on the channel. "HQ, confirm that ping." Static answered first. Then Hale's voice cut in. "Whatever moved out there, it's big. You're close to it." The fog shifted again, heavier this time, like something passed between us and the deeper woods. The sound hit again, closer this time, and the fog pulled back just enough to show a shape crossing between two burned trunks. Harrow lifted his rifle and took a half step forward. "Contact," he said. Nobody fired. We couldn't see what it was, only that it moved with purpose. I tried Hale again. "Can you track that?" He came back fast. "Negative. It's blocking signal each time it moves." The shape slipped out of sight, and the fog closed behind it like a curtain. The shape came back into view without warning. This time it stood still, halfway inside the fog, tall enough that Harrow's light hit its chest before it reached the head. The team locked in, rifles tight, waiting for my call. I opened my mouth to speak, but the creature moved first. One long step forward, calm and deliberate, like it wanted us to see it clearly. Hale's voice cut through the static. "Mercer, pull your team back. That's not the Pine Devil." The creature stopped again, and the fog folded around its outline, hiding everything except the height and the slow shift of its weight. The creature shifted again, and the fog rolled forward with it.
Harrow tried to keep the beam steady, but the light washed out against the haze. "Hold," I said, but the word barely left my mouth before the creature moved. It broke sideways in a blur, faster than anything that size should move. Bauer on the right flank caught the first hit. Something slammed into him hard enough to lift him off his feet and drop him into the ash. The team snapped to his position, but the creature was already gone, swallowed by the fog. We closed on Bauer fast, but the fog made it hard to judge distance. He tried to push himself up, one hand sinking into the ash. "Something's in the trees," he said, voice tight. Before we reached him, the creature hit again, straight down from above, a clean drop through the fog. Bauer's light snapped sideways, then went dark. Harrow fired a short burst into the canopy, but the rounds disappeared into the haze. Hail broke through the static. "Mercer, that pattern matches the stalker. Get your team out of there now." Harrow pulled the team back into a tight line, but the stalker didn't give us any room. A heavy impact slammed the ground 10 feet ahead of us, hard enough to shake loose ash into the air. A long shape rose out of the fog, tall, angled forward, limbs set wide like it balanced on more than 2 points. It stayed low, watching us. Harrow fired first. The shots cut through the fog, but the stalker slipped sideways before any round touched it. The creature rushed the line in a straight burst of speed. Keller went down as it clipped him on the pass, his rifle spinning out of reach. Keller tried to crawl back, but the stalker stepped into view before any of us reached him. The fog thinned just enough for me to catch the shape. Tall, easily 9 feet, with a long reptile-shaped head held low. 2 upper arms hung past its waist, claws open, while another pair braced it as it shifted its weight. It didn't rush this time. It stood there, calm and steady, like it was deciding who to take next.
The stalker moved before anyone breathed. It dropped low and cut straight toward our line. Harrow fired again, but the round slipped past it. I pushed forward to pull Keller out, and the creature shifted its weight and snapped one of its upper arms toward me. The blow caught my side hard enough to spin me off balance. I hit the ground on my shoulder, vision shaking. The team opened up with controlled fire, but the stalker was already gone, sliding back into the fog like it knew the terrain better than we did. Harrow tried to pull the line back, but the stalker hit us again before he finished the order. It came in from the left this time, fast and low. Grant went down with a sharp grunt, dragged across the ash before anyone could reach him. His light swung once and vanished into the fog. Hale's voice cut through the static in short bursts. "Mercer, move, pull back, don't hold that line." I pushed myself up, ribs burning from the hit. The fog ahead of us shifted in a slow roll, and for the first time I heard something under it. Not the stalker. A voice, weak, calling for help. I moved toward the voice, keeping low and checking the fog for movement. Harrow tried to cover me, but the stalker cut across the line again, forcing him back. I pushed deeper into the burn, past a tangle of fallen branches and scorched roots. The voice came again, strained and close to the ground. I swung my light across the ash and found a man curled near a half-burned log, clothes torn and one arm burned raw. He lifted his head when the light hit him. "Help," he whispered. I crouched beside him, keeping one eye on the fog. "What's your name?" I asked. He took a slow breath. "Chris." I got an arm under his shoulders and pulled him up. He winced but didn't fight it. "Can you walk?" I asked. He nodded once, more reflex than certainty. Behind us, the fog shifted in a slow, heavy sweep. Harrow called out that the stalker was moving again, closing the gap. I tightened my grip on Chris and started back toward the landing zone. Every few steps he stumbled, burned arm hanging stiff at his side. The fog kept folding in behind us like the creature was pushing it forward. Harrow's voice came through the fog in short bursts, guiding us toward the chopper's lights. I kept Chris moving, one step at a time, ribs pulling with every breath. The fog ahead of us thinned just enough to show 2 shapes, Harrow and Keller's dropped rifle. Harrow waved us in fast. "It's right behind you," he said, eyes locked past my shoulder.
I didn't turn. The ground behind us shook once, a heavy landing, and a long shadow stretched across the trees. Harrow raised his rifle and backed up to cover our approach as we closed the last stretch to the extraction point. The chopper spun its lights across the clearing as we broke through the last line of trees. The pilot held the skids low, blades chopping the fog into drifting sheets. Harrow sprinted ahead to clear a path while I pulled Chris the final few yards. The ground behind us shook again, closer this time. Harrow turned and fired a controlled burst into the fog. Something tall shifted just outside the beam, arms spreading as it closed the distance. "Go!" Harrow yelled. I hauled Chris up onto the skid and pushed him inside. The stalker hit the edge of the light a second later, stopping just short of the rotor wash, its outline locked in place by the glare. I turned back for Harrow, but he was already gone. His light lay in the ash, beam pointed straight up through the fog. The stalker shifted toward it, blocking the glow with its height. I felt the rush of air before the strike landed. One of its long arms clipped my shoulder and drove me against the skid. Pain shut down my side, and the pilot yelled for me to get in or he'd lose the window. I grabbed the rail, pulled myself inside, and hit the ramp release. The stalker stepped forward as the chopper lifted, claws reaching through the fog, but the wash pushed it back. The clearing dropped away beneath us, and it was just me and Chris in the cabin, both of us barely holding on. The pilot pulled us higher until the fog erased the clearing below. I leaned back against the cabin wall, hand pressed to my shoulder. Across from me, the burned man watched every move I made, breathing through clenched teeth. "Who are you people?" he asked, confused and running on fumes. "Mercer," I said. "Search and containment." He shook his head slowly, trying to piece it together. "Containment for what?" I didn't answer. The pilot turned east, engines pushing us into open sky. I glanced out the open door one last time. The fog far below shifted in wide circles, moving with our flight path like something followed from the ground. "And that's what I remember from my last mission," I said. Director Laura Klein watched me the whole time, waiting to see if anything else surfaced. Nothing did. My shoulder still ached from the stalker's hit, but I stayed steady. When she finally spoke, her tone was plain. "By every measure, you shouldn't have made it out of that clearing." "I'm aware," I said. "It didn't feel like a promising night." She set her pen aside. "You kept your team together longer than anyone predicted. You made decisions we didn't anticipate. That's why you're here. Vale is building a 2-person field unit, and I want you leading it." I leaned back slightly, letting the tension in my shoulder settle. "Different scale than what I'm used to," I said. "I usually run with a full squad." "This won't be squad work," Klein said. "This unit is investigative. Smaller footprint, more observation, more analysis. Too many people on site, and you disrupt the events you need to understand." I nodded once. It tracked with the kind of cases they'd been flagging lately. "All right," I said. "Who fills the other seat?" "Dr. Abby Ellis," Klein said. "Parabiology. Field tested. She notices things most agents miss." She slid a folder across the desk. "You'll meet her this afternoon. The two of you are going to cover ground no one else can." I opened the folder. Ellis's file was thin. Field certifications, a few notes on previous assignments, and a list of biology disciplines that made my head hurt just reading them. "She looks overqualified," I said. "That's the point," Klein said. "The cases coming in don't match anything we've handled before. You survived one of them. She can help you understand the rest." I closed the folder. "You said this unit is investigative. What exactly are we investigating?" "Patterns," Klein said. "Failures. Behaviors we've ignored for too long. Vale has been reacting for decades. I want this unit to anticipate instead." "That's ambitious," I said. "It's necessary." She reached for another file. "Hale stays on your line for remote support. He'll brief you on the first case once you and Ellis check in."
"Hale's solid," I said. "If he tells me to move, I move. That's why he's still assigned to you." Klein stood, ending the meeting. "You're both on duty in 3 hours. Use the time. Ellis has her own history with Vale. You'll find common ground quickly." I rose and tucked the folder under my arm. "Any advice before we start?" "Don't underestimate her," Klein said. "I don't underestimate people. That's why you're still alive." I stepped into the equipment room and saw her right away. Abby Ellis stood over an open field bag, sorting gear into neat rows. Early 30s, long black hair tied up in a tight bun, black nerdy glasses that somehow worked on her. She looked up the second she heard my boots hit the floor. "You're Mercer," she said. "Daniel," I answered. "You must be Ellis." "Abby." She closed the bag halfway, more out of habit than urgency. "Klein said you'd stop by before the briefing." "I figured I should meet the person I'm heading out there with," I said. "How long have you been with Vale?" She thought for a second. 6 years total. Mostly analysis, lab work, the occasional consult. They pulled me for this assignment 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks, I said. That's quick for a field promotion. "That's because it wasn't a promotion," she said. "It was a reassignment. They needed someone who understands the biology behind these cases." I nodded slowly. "And your field experience?" She hesitated, hands resting on the edge of her bag. "This is my first deployment." I let out a short breath, not dramatic, just honest. "So I'm heading back into the woods with someone who's never stepped foot in the woods." Her eyebrows inched up behind the glasses. "I can handle myself." "I'm sure you can," I said. "But just so I'm clear, you've never been on a live mission, and your first one is with me, investigating the thing that wiped out a trained team." She crossed her arms, steady and unshaken. "You're the one who survived it. I assume that wasn't by accident." I couldn't help the small grin that tugged at me. "All right, fair, but I'm still working with a newbie. And I'm working with a man who still smells like smoke from his last disaster," she said. That one landed clean. I nodded once. "Okay, good, we're honest about it." "Honesty helps," she said, tightening her bun with one quick twist. "Now let's see if we can actually function together." Abby rested her hand on the kit she'd just closed. "Klein said the site has disturbances." "Disturbances," I said. "That's one way to put it." "What did you see?" she asked. Her voice carried zero drama, zero fear, just a woman who needed straight answers before she stepped into something she'd only read about. I leaned against the table. Trees bent in one direction, like something brushed past them. Rocks turned over. Footprints deep enough to swallow a boot. She absorbed that, eyes narrowing behind her glasses. "That kind of force doesn't match anything in Vale's catalog." "I figured that out," I said. "And you didn't get a clear look at it?" "I got a look," I said. "Just long enough to understand my team never had a chance." She didn't flinch. "Then I'll need to gather more data at the site." "Of course you will," I said. She glanced up. "That sounds like an issue." "It's just," I paused. "Most people hear a whole squad died in one place and avoid that place. You want samples." "That's my job," she said. "Yours is different. Mine involves bringing you back alive." Before anything else could land between us, Hale stepped into the doorway with a tablet pressed against his chest. "You two look productive," Hale said. Abby lifted her pack. "We're sorting the basics." "That's one word for it," I said. Hale offered the tablet. "Transport's prepping now. These came in from the recon team before they pulled out." The transport waited outside the loading bay, engine running, back doors open like a jaw ready to swallow whatever walked into it. Abby climbed in first, tossed her pack to the bench, and sat with her hands resting on her knees like she needed them in plain sight to think. I stepped in behind her, set the field case beside mine, and took the seat across from her. The doors pulled shut, sealing us in with the low hum of the engine and the rattle of gear shifting under the floor. Abby watched me for a moment, the kind of look someone gives when they're trying to decide if the person across from them understands the stakes or just pretends to. "Klein told me your team had full experience," she said. "Seasoned operators, no gaps." "True," I said. "And you still lost them?" I held her stare. "Yeah, I did."
Abby didn't look away. She kept her hands together, fingers laced, elbows on her knees. "I need to understand what happened," she said, not the sanitized version. I let out a slow breath. "What do you want, a play-by-play?" "I want the part you left out of your report." "Which part is that?" "The part that tells me what I'm stepping into," she said. Her voice stayed even, not confrontational, just determined. "If I walk into that forest blind, I won't help either of us." The engine hummed under the floor. The truck turned off the service road, and the suspension gave a small jolt. I rubbed my shoulder where the bandage ran beneath my jacket. "We hit the first clearing at dusk," I said. "Fog climbed in fast. The air changed. It got heavier." Abby waited, patient, focused. "Trees were bent," I continued. "Not snapped, bent, like something brushed past them sideways. Rock piles shifted. The ground dipped in places it shouldn't dip." She leaned in slightly. "Tracks?" "Big ones," I said. "Deep enough that I had to haul my team out of them as we moved." Abby nodded once, absorbing every detail. "And then?" "And then the fog rolled in thicker. I heard a sound behind us. A large shape moved through the tree line, and everything after that went to hell." She didn't ask for the specifics. Maybe she read them on my face. Maybe she respected the line. Instead, she said, "If we see any of that again, I need you to tell me early. I can't analyze what you don't share." "And I need you to understand," I said, "analysis won't save you if you freeze." "I don't freeze," she said. "We'll see." Before she could respond, Hale's voice crackled through the intercom above us. "Ellis, Mercer, you're 3 minutes from the drop point." Abby adjusted her pack straps. I tightened my grip on the case. The truck kept rolling. The truck rolled to a stop with a soft hiss from the air brakes. The rear doors swung open, and cold forest air slid in. Abby stepped down first, boots sinking slightly in the damp soil. I followed with the case slung over my shoulder. The truck pulled away, leaving us with the steady hum of insects and the slow sway of pine branches overhead. Abby scanned the tree line with steady eyes. "Klein's file on your last site mentioned Pine Devil territory." "That's right," I said. "Then tell me something," she said. "What did Vale hide in that file?" I adjusted the case strap. The files never capture the real weight of these things. Pine Devils weren't creatures that wandered. They controlled territory, marked it, moved in tight circles. They didn't strike for fun. They struck because something crossed a line. Abby looked at me carefully. "So they defend." "They defend more than they attack," I said. "You see deep tracks, bent trees, thick claw marks in one direction. That's a Pine Devil warning someone to back away. They broadcast their presence. They make space." Abby stepped closer to a patch of disturbed soil beside the path. "That's different from what you described earlier. The thing that hit your team didn't warn you." "It didn't follow Pine Devil patterns," I said. "The Pine Devils moved like something with rules. This thing moved like something that hunts for purpose." She crouched beside a clump of uprooted ferns, she said. "Klein hinted at another species," she said, "something older." I nodded once. Pine Devils had predators. Abby looked up sharply. "Predators." "One," I said. "Old. Rare. The woods held stories long before Vale arrived. Hunters found circles of torn earth. Trees snapped in clean lines. Pine Devils abandoned whole regions." "And your last site?" she asked. "It showed those patterns, old ones."
Abby stood slowly. "So the thing we're tracking is tied to the pine devils." "Tied," I said, "or something they feared." She looked around the clearing again, the quiet settling on her shoulders. "Then this forest carries more history than our files allow." "That's why we walk," I said. She took a breath and motioned toward the path. "Lead on, Daniel. I'll keep pace." I started forward, boots pressing into damp soil. Abby followed, the two of us moving deeper into the trees, where pine devils once ruled, and something older walked through their kingdom without hesitation.
Abby moved quietly behind me, eyes darting between the ground and the trunks on either side of the path. She didn't need instructions, she just absorbed everything. The forest carried a heavy stillness, the kind that made you aware of your own breath. She stopped next to a section of disturbed earth. "This shifted recently," she said. "Weather hasn't settled it." I crouched beside her. "That's the first sign." "The first sign of what?" Abby asked. "A thing that walks a straight line," I said. "Doesn't dodge roots, doesn't adjust for terrain, just moves and leaves a drag pattern behind." She studied the soil carefully. "That's consistent with pine devil behavior." "Parts of it," I said, "but pine devils don't travel flat. They roll weight from shoulder to shoulder. It leaves a curve. This is direct." Abby stood and brushed dirt from her hands. "Then the stalker?" "We're in the right area," I said. She scanned the surrounding woods, voice quieter now. "It takes territory from pine devils?" "Used to," I said. "The pine devils responded by abandoning sections of forest for a while. They treated it like a force they couldn't beat." Abby let that sink in. "Vale never documented that?" "They didn't believe it." We kept moving, the tree cover thickening overhead. A faint fog drifted low across the ground, not enough to hide anything, just enough to make shadows shift. Abby slowed again near a fallen trunk. "Daniel, look at this." I stepped beside her. A long scar ran across the bark, not from claws, not from teeth. Something had scraped across it with purpose. "That's a pine devil marker," I said. Abby traced the edge of the mark with a gloved finger. "It's old." "Yeah, they used to walk this ridge." "But they pulled out." "They did." She took one step back, eyes scanning the forest with a fresh understanding. "So the stalker pushed them away." "Right into the path of people like us," I said. Abby tightened her pack straps. "Good, then we're close." The forest dipped into a shallow hollow, the ground softer and darker, like water gathered there after storms. Abby slowed beside a cluster of ferns that leaned outward as if something brushed through them. "Daniel," she said quietly, "there is something under the soil here." I knelt beside her. The soil bulged in one spot, subtle but wrong. I brushed away the loose dirt. A torn veil glove lay half buried, fabric ripped along the palm. Mud packed the seams. The wrist tag carried a faded red stripe. Abby crouched beside me. "This matches Vale's field issue." "It matches my team's issue," I said. She looked at me, waiting. I turned the glove over. A name stripe clung to the edge, the first two letters still visible. "Sa," she said. "Sawyer," I finished. Abby's voice stayed steady. "He served under you." "He radioed me 30 seconds before the hit," I said. Abby studied the soil around the glove. "This ground settled recently. Rain didn't smooth it." "So he moved through here," I said. "Alive." Abby's eyes swept the trees. "If he dropped this here, he left it on purpose." "Probably," I said. "Sawyer kept his gear tight." Then Abby lifted her hand, pointing to another detail I missed. Faint drag marks cutting through the soil 10 feet ahead. "What do you make of that?" she asked. "Someone crawled," I said. The air shifted, not wind, just pressure changing, like the forest held still for a moment. Abby felt it too, her posture tightened.
We followed the drag pattern a few steps. It led toward a cluster of tightly spaced pines where fog gathered in a low pocket. Abby paused. "Daniel." I saw at the same moment she did. A figure between the trees. Tall, still, arms long enough to hang near its knees, shoulders high and narrow, head tilted slightly, like it listened more than it looked. It didn't move. It just stood there. Abby's breath shortened. I spoke low and even. "Stay right where you are." She didn't move. Her eyes stayed forward, locked on the shape. The figure remained motionless, half real in the fog. 1 second. 2. 3. Then it stepped back, disappearing into the trees, without a sound. Abby whispered, "Daniel, what was that?" I gave her the truth. The thing the pine devils feared.
Abby stayed crouched beside the drag marks, scanning the ground while I watched the place where the silhouette vanished. She didn't ask any more questions. She didn't need to. The comm on my vest clicked once. "Mercer, Ellis, report," Hale's voice came through. "We found a glove," I said. "Sawyer's." A brief pause. Hale wasn't the type to lose his calm, but I heard something shift in his tone. "Condition of the site," he asked. "Signs of movement, fresh." Abby lifted her gaze toward the tree line. Drag patterns, shifted soil, bent vegetation. Someone passed through recently. Hale clicked through his console. I heard keyboard taps behind him. "Your location shows an interference bloom." Abby mouthed the word silently. "Interference bloom?" I shook my head. I didn't like that phrasing either. We moved deeper, following the drag marks, as the fog gathered thicker around our boots. The trees grew closer together. Sound dropped in a way that felt unnatural. The comm crackled again. "Mercer, hold position. Something shifts on your—" His voice cut out mid-sentence. Abby looked up fast. "Daniel?" I tapped the side of the comm. Nothing, just dead air. "Stay close," I said. She stepped beside me, her hand brushing the straps of her pack, like she wanted to know where everything sat. A soft thump rolled through the ground. Just one. Something large placed weight somewhere behind us. Abby whispered, "Is that Sawyer?" "No," I said quietly. "Sawyer crawled." Another thump. Closer. We turned slowly. Fog drifted between the trees, thick enough to distort shapes, but thin enough to hint at what stood inside it. A human shape first. Then longer arms. Then a narrow frame that rose far above any person we'd ever seen. Just a silhouette. Still. Waiting. Abby's breath eased out in one long stream. I raised one hand slightly, palm open toward her. "Don't move." The silhouette tilted its head the same way it did before, like it studied us, learning the exact distance between predator and prey. The fog slid in front of it. When it passed, the shape was gone. Abby whispered, "Daniel?" "We need to fall back," I said. "Now." A branch snapped behind us. Hard. Close. The ground vibrated. And something stepped through the trees.